The major real-life situation that has spurred this TOK presentation involves the recent use of science, in particular of genetics, to pursue the political agenda of separating Jews from immigrants in Israel. Genetic sequencing has been used to determine heritage, but this application of science has led us to question what it really means to be genetically Jewish. After arriving in Eastern Europe around a millennium ago, Jewish communities remained segregated by force and by custom, mixing only occasionally with local populations. Isolation slowly narrowed the gene pool, which now gives modern Jews of European descent a set of identifiable genetic variations that set them apart from other European populations at a microscopic level. In February 2019, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported that the chief rabbinate of Israel, the peak religious authority in the country, had been requesting DNA tests to confirm Jewishness before issuing some marriage licenses. In Israel, matrimonial law is religious, not civil. Jews can marry Jews, but intermarriage with Muslims or Christians is legally unacknowledged. This means that when a Jewish couple wants to tie the knot, they are required by law to prove their Jewishness to the rabbinate according to Orthodox tradition, which in this case defines Jewish ancestry as being passed down through the mother. While for most Israeli Jews this simply involves handling over their mother's birth or marriage certificate, for many recent immigrants to Israel who often come from communities where being Jewish is defined differently or where documentation is scarce, producing evidence that satisfies the rabbinate standard of proof can be impossible. In the past, confirming Jewishness in the absence of documentation has involved contacting rabbis from the countries where people originate, or tracking genealogical records back to prove religious continuity along the matrilineal line. But as was reported in Haaretz, the rabbis have been requesting that some people undergo a DNA test to verify their claim before being allowed to marry. For many Israelis, news that the rabbinical judges were turning to DNA testing was shocking. The Jewish Life Information Center, an organization that helps Israeli Jews navigate state-administered matters of Jewish life, like in marriage and conversion, in the past year has seen up to 50 cases where families have been asked to undergo DNA tests to certify their Jewishness. There is confusion around what being genetically Jewish means. People wonder how the organization decides when someone becomes Jewish and if 51% of Jewish DNA is sufficient and if 49% is not. There is a specific principle in Jewish law that instructs rabbis not to undermine someone's self-declared religious identity if that person has been accepted by a Jewish community. The central principle is that when it comes to a Jewish identity, the most important determinants are social, trust, kinship, commitment, and not necessarily biological. The tradition has always been that if someone lives among Jews and partakes in communal and religious life, then they are one of them. Having a specific genetic standard to adhere to would be an unwarranted and radical interpretation of Jewish law on one side. This background information brings us to our knowledge question, which, however, requires a few terms to be defined beforehand. The natural sciences are an area of knowledge that seeks to discover laws of nature and regularities in the natural world. The methods of the natural sciences are based on observation of the world as a means of testing hypotheses. This description implies that there is an attempt to produce a system of knowledge that is independent of human agency. The extraordinary success of the natural sciences has led some people to see them as the dominant cognitive paradigm or model of knowledge. However, we should be cautious because science is not a truth monopoly, as other areas of knowledge can also explain the world. Moreover, human sciences, in simple terms, are the study of the reality of being human. More specifically, the human sciences study the social, cultural, and biological aspects of human existence. And last but not least, scientism is an approach to knowledge, illustrating that science is the only medium through which we can make sense of reality and discover the truth. Since the human mind is fallible, it can lead many to believe that science cannot provide all the answers because of many questions that lie beyond its scope. This hence leads to our knowledge question. being that to what extent can we use scientism as a basis to understand interdisciplinary matters of the world? The sources for this presentation can be found on this slide.